Welcome to Game Over Montreal. Is this the best game we've seen from the Montreal Canadiens since their series against Vegas in 2021? Back when this team was, playing, putting everything on the line. How many players have never come back since then? Uh, that was a full-on game of effort and execution from the Montreal Canadiens, and they needed to be that good because Boston was all in tonight too, from what I saw tonight. Let's welcome in our guest, Mitch Brown from Elite Prospects and EP Rinkside. Mitch, how did you find watching that one?
I only come on after exciting games, it seems. That was a
Right?
really fun one. There were some nice step ups from some key players on Montreal. I know it was a bit of a quiet game from Suzuki at 5-on-5, but Kovacevic, Guli were great. Slafkovsky looked great. Caulfield was fun. All in all, it was just a really, really, really fun, enjoyable game with a lot of back and forth and some exciting plays.
Yeah, I think at least in the first half of the game, I don't know if there was a single player on the Canadians at least. Maybe Boston, like obviously you're not watching as closely when you're specifically meant to cover the Canadians and like taking notes of who's who. But I wouldn't say there was a single player on the Canadians for the first half of the game that was playing poorly, right? Like the execution level was really high. The expectations clearly from each other were super high. We saw Sean Monahan have a little temper tantrum after causing a little offside at one point. Him and Tanner Pearson both were really mad at themselves, not each other. And I think they had this game circled on the calendar because this is not a level of play that we've seen from the Canadians, maybe against Vegas, but for the most part, even in the games that they played well this season, or even last season, or the season before that, I don't think we've seen this level of high end execution from the entire team until Matheson started to bobble the puck a little bit offensively in the second half of the game. And then, both teams got a little sloppy in the third, but overall, I was really impressed whole cloth.
Yeah, and Montembeault.
Yeah.
That was a really nice game from him. He was on top of it, seeing everything. Montreal's defense did a really good job in front of the net, especially the Kovacevic Guli pairing. They did a great job keeping things to the outside, pushing guys wide, letting Montembeault see the puck. And I mean, he put on a show there for a little bit. It was really fun to watch him, watch his interaction with the defense, and then in particular, watch Montreal's transition game. The way they broke the puck out of the zone, their emphasis on bringing pucks to the middle, creating speed to the inside, and then driving wide and getting it back to the middle again. So you see a lot of these, you see a lot of what Martin St. Louis has really tried to instill over the last couple of years coming to fruition now. Getting open off pucks, supporting plays, being in scoring position, and most importantly, using your teammates effectively.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, right? Is players being seen when they're taking the correct routes. Uh, there was so many good plays in this that we just haven't seen. I think you look at the St. Louis game just a couple of games ago, right? And this game, and it's hard to believe it's the same team. The level of execution is just so much different. But I think this is going to be one of those games where when the Canadians are in the playoff picture, a couple of years from now, most likely, not necessarily when they're ready to compete for a Stanley Cup, but when they're, that team that's knocking on the door, when they're in a slump, I would, if I was Marty St. Louis, be like, we're going to watch this game. We're going to say, listen, you're all capable of playing this way. Not for 82 games, no team is, but this was a really, really strong performance against a team that they probably shouldn't beat, more than 70 times out of 100. Or more than
Yeah,
30 times out of 100 is what I meant. Boston should win 70 times out of 100 between these two teams right as they're currently constructed.
yeah, absolutely. And shout out to the old guys. Brendan Gallagher, Sean Monahan, Tanner Pearson, they all looked really good. Something that I've liked about Gallagher this year is he's a lot more patient with the puck.
Right?
In transition a couple years ago, man, just bombing pucks out, not a care in the world, not getting offense up the rink as a consequence. His numbers have improved this year. We're seeing him get more chances in front, and a big part of that is because now when he gets the puck in the defensive zone or in the neutral zone, you see him pick his head up, use his teammates that are in the middle. You see him use that short support, particularly Monahan coming up the middle and so on. And so it's really nice to see how they have established all of these links over the past couple of years, and they're finally starting to pay off now.
Yeah, I mean Gallagher, he's no longer doing that like turn around, shovel the puck towards the net thing, right? And where you could tell he really needs a goal, so he's like, I'm just gonna flip this on my backhand. Whoever can get it can get it. Yeah, you're right. He is making more plays. He was really impressive tonight. That the second goal for Gallagher, that was really strong play. He almost got one earlier in the game too. He was just a little bit behind Monahan on the cues to like haul up on that 2-on-1 that they had. Really impressive game. And we were talking before we started the show that it's convenient that we have Mitch on a game where Caden Gooley scores the game-winning goal in overtime because as everyone knows who watches this show, Mitch Brown is the original Caden Gooley booster. Back even before the draft, he was in Gooley's corner. Who told me that Caden Gooley had more offense to bring than what he was showing on in juniors? And then lo and behold, as soon as he gets traded, he shows all that offense. And last year, great offense even as a rookie. This year, he's always jumping in plays. It was Mitch Brown, ladies and gentlemen. He knows Caden Gooley.
It is just so cool to watch him become a better player in many facets in the NHL than he was in the WHL. The framework was always there with Prince Albert, but it's really in Edmonton where you start seeing it come to life, where he's completing more of his plays. And then now in the NHL, this is a guy who can not necessarily control the game offensively, but he's a big piece of the puzzle of what they do. He's always in the right position, whether he's activating down low or moving laterally across the point to be an easy to hit, accessible option. I love what he does in the breakout. There were a couple dump outs where I'm sure he probably could have got a little bit more value, but you see this sort of clever short range passing game where he's hitting guys, relocating, getting open, supporting. And then the defense, he had that nice stop on Pasternak late in the third period off the rush. He made a couple of other big plays, big block shots, tough as nails out there, of course, as he always is. But, he comes to play and he makes plays.
Yeah,
There's only so much value in having a defenseman who just, is engaged and tries hard. You need to be able to make plays. And I think at this stage, Gooley has solidified himself as the best defenseman on this team.
I completely 100% agree. And I know Mike Matheson's going to still play the most minutes. Part of that being he's a freak of nature who can play 28 minutes and not get tired. Although it kind of looked like maybe the sloppiness came from him being a little tired tonight. But again, second straight game. I know people were getting on him a little bit on Twitter because he had two sequences where he made like multiple mistakes and they caused pretty hectic situations. But I think on both of those plays, he was actually the one who broke them up defensively. So I'll give him a pass on those because the rest of his game I thought was really strong tonight, especially offensively in the first period. And I think defensively, like without the puck, he was really strong all game as well. He wasn't struggling like he has been in recent weeks with missing his man or getting caught in no man's land, kind of like looking and underestimating an assignment like Nikita Kucherov against Tampa Bay. So good game from Mike Matheson as well. But Mitch, how about that shift from Michael Pezzetta? Like, that
Okay.
man is a badass.
So I
Just,
assume we're talking about the one where he runs the guy down the corner, then gets the
yes.
chance. So Pizzetta, for those who don't know, was a top pick into the Ontario Hockey League. He has some skill. He's always been known more as a hard worker, as a hard working guy. And you see the skill in moments though in the NHL. Where like it doesn't necessarily appear in like terms of like handling ability, but more like he knows how to get open. He can shoot it off the pass. He makes like a sneaky pass here or there. But his wrecking ball qualities are really interesting because he's not really someone who kills you when he steps on the ice for the most part. There are
Right.
games, there are times in the season where he does, but for the most part, especially this season, it seems like when he's on the ice, he's either neutral or slightly positive. And I think that shift that he had where you kind of just see him crash and bang and then instantly his brain is like, "Oh yeah, it's time to play offense." That's the type of stuff that you want to see from these guys going forward. I know there's a lot of talk in the Toronto market right now about the fourth line, and their fourth line finally takes Reeves off, and then they could have a big night tonight. And Pizzetta, if he can start on unlocking a little bit more of that attacking mentality, then Montreal's fourth line is going to be really impactful, especially because when you have him and Jake Evans together, Evans is more of an ideas player than a skill player. He has the positive ideas, but not necessarily the ability to complete all of these plays. But maybe if you give him another skill option, that changes.
Yeah, I think you're right. And another skill option on that line, Raphael Harvey Pinard made a lot of really smart plays with the puck tonight. Really enabled Evans and Pezzetta to play with that jam, right? What stuck out for me, even like early in his career with Pezzetta, that he had a little bit more skill than your average grinder, was that guy's got like a pretty decent one timer. Like even for
Yeah.
the NHL, it's an above average one timer. So it's not surprising really that he scores a few goals here and there. But I was really impressed by specifically that shift because it seemed to like change the game immediately. It was like the Canadians were already pushing back well, but that just like it established a tone for the game that immediately Xhekaj picked up as well. Kovacevic picked up with the big hit on Marchand on the blue line. Like the Canadians were kind of playing in some ways Bruins hockey.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of the way that this team has been constructed, I suppose. But when you look at Kovacevic, this wasn't a big part of his game before he comes to Montreal. Part of the reason why he's had difficulty cracking into the NHL is because he's big, but he's not necessarily physical. And Montreal found value in him because he does the small things really well. He plays the system really well. He's one of their best players in terms of knowing where to be on the ice at any given time, whether that's traditionally just standing at the point or activating down the weak side or whatever. But I really like what he does off the rush defensively. And you see him starting to angle guys and then crush them, taking that extra little, it hurts to hit people, not going to lie.
Yep.
But when you do hit someone and you get that puck, you create more space up the rink for your teammates. And so that's one kind of minor thing that you've seen him grow into over the past couple of seasons, and it's really improved his game. Like, it's really tough to watch this Montreal Canadiens team and not think that he's a legit top 4 guy for them pretty much every single night.
Yeah, there's a couple comments asking us about Juraj Slafkovsky. Be patient. Next segment is all about Juraj Slafkovsky. We will get to it, I promise. But I'm gonna get to a couple other things tonight as well. I think it's all positive for the Montreal Canadiens after this game. I think it would be it would kind of suck to pick up negatives. But what did make me laugh, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm not trying to trash him because I thought he had a great game. But Christian Dvorak, I think it was in the third period there, he like called for the puck, like called for the pass, and then immediately bobbled it and fell on his butt. And I was like, that would be me. Like if I was trying to play hockey at a high level, that would be me.
It was major junior hockey vibes for sure. You see these guys just clapping on the ice, and then the puck comes to them, and they just don't know what to do with it. It's like, then why were you calling for it?
Yeah, that is 100%. Yeah. Ramelli says Dvorak was dead weight on that line. I think he was pretty good tonight. Like I thought him and Caulfield had some good plays going. The three of them honestly had some pretty good forechecks. I know they didn't score, but there were several chances where all three of those guys were involved. So like I think on balance, Dvorak the last 2 years has not been a good player. To start this year, he's pretty rusty and struggled. But right now, tonight, I thought Dvorak was the best game that I've seen from him in a long time.
Or is that Dvorak adjusted standards or normal standards?
I guess so. I'd probably. I think you guys are being a little bit harsh on Dvorak right now. I mean, listen, the only reason why he's getting those minutes on that line is because Doc's out. We all know that, right? He's a temporary fit. But if he can keep playing like he did tonight, I feel like he has a little bit of trade value at some point. And over the last 2 years, I thought he's had like none. So that's an improvement to me.
Yeah, he's out there to do the details, and I think tonight he had the details down.
Yeah, 100%. I noticed things went pretty well for the Canadians for the most part until the third period with the penalty calls. But it's one thing to outplay the Bruins, which is pretty rare for the Montreal Canadiens over the last several years. It's another thing to win the game, but also to get Brad Marchand actually take a penalty for his mouthing off. Like, when does this ever happen? It's like some sort of weird voodoo curse on the Bruins tonight because that was incredible. You know what my theory is? He's not used to these games going this way. The Bruins were out physicaled in this game, and I think he just got really frustrated with it.
Yeah, I don't blame him. You've had an entire career where you're insulated, and then
Yep.
the one team that you've been able to walk over. I guess they've been able to walk over Toronto for the most part as well, but the one team you've been able to walk over has some pushback, and he actually had a pretty good game at times, but he did when it does not go well for Marchand, it really kind of breaks down. And he managed to get his head back in the game. I think he scored off his skate, right?
He
With
did,
that
yeah.
nice little redirection off his feet in front. So he managed to get back into it and whatever. But yeah, he's going to be very interesting to watch in the latter stages of his career because you wonder like how much more punishment can a body take. We've already seen his production fall off a cliff. He's still a very good player, don't get me wrong, but he's just going to be one of those interesting guys to see how aging affects him. And yeah, he's been such a thorn in the side of the entire NHL forever. And he's still a super impactful player. Like even when he's doing dumb
Yeah.
stuff and having breakdowns out there, he can still turn a game upside down.
And that's almost what makes him so effective, right? Is like even when he does lose it and end up on the wrong side of the penalties, which is rare enough, he's usually, you know, as much as he's a little bit of a dirty player, he's in control of himself most of the time. He's usually the one making other people go out of control. So to see it turned on him, it is satisfying and rare, but he still manages to find a way to contribute in those games. He is a friggin' phenomenal player, as annoying as that is. And such a weird aging curve for Brad Marchand. He basically became a superstar in his 30s when he was like really decent in his 20s. Very, very weird career.
It's almost like he's one of those guys who at some point realized that if he just puts some of the shenanigans on the back burner, that he can be a way better hockey player.
Yeah, like Michael Bunting.
Yeah. Michael Bunting stopped talking quite as much and then became a little bit better.
There you go. All right, we are going to talk about Juraj Slafkovsky coming up in a second here, but first I got to do our advertisers justice. We got to talk about Sign Up Expert. So, the NHL season is heating up, and there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Whether you're looking to hammer an Austin Matthews anytime goal, which is always a pretty good idea, or ride the puck line with the Montreal Canadiens, looking decent tonight, but not usually. Our partners at Sign Up Expert want to make sure you're ready to sweat your bets with one of the best. Sign Up Expert is hooking up our listeners with one of the newest sports books available in Canada, Betano. Betano is home to some of the best odds when it comes to betting on the NHL and offers unique markets, including virtual soccer and basketball. All you have to do to get started is scan that QR code on your screen or click the link in the description to register and place that first bet. If you thought the Vancouver Canucks have been the biggest surprise of the season so far, wait until you try Betano. Don't walk, run to check out Betano today. Scan that QR code or hit the link in the description to get started and start sweating your bets with the best. Always remember to bet responsibly and within your means. Viewers must be 19 plus to sign up for Betano. All right, let's welcome Mitch back in. Mitch, Juraj Slafkovsky. I have a theory with Slafkovsky. Well, not necessarily theory. I'll say some comparables in terms of playing style. A few games ago, or maybe it was the last game, I don't remember now. I compared Slafkovsky as a rookie a little bit to Mike McCarron, where he would get into good spots, but it was like he was a half second behind the play at all times, and even when he would get the puck, his shot would come too late to be dangerous. I watch him now, and not so much this game specifically, but the last couple and the first couple games with Kirby Dach, where he was playing really well. He reminds me of a young Lars Eller, where he's putting together those two good plays, but he can't quite get the finish on like the last play that makes you a top guy. I wonder where do you think that fits? Does that sound kind of all right? Because I feel like now that he's taken a step forward defensively, it's even more reminiscent to me of young Eller.
Well, I was like 14 when Aller was traded to Montreal, so I
Damn
mean,
it.
I have no idea. But
At least you're honest. You got to bring your 14-year-old opinions back. Just like try to
yeah,
think of
the
what you
worst part
thought
is I
back
think
then.
when he was traded to Montreal, I had like followed hockey for like 2 years at that point. So I'm sure like I just had the worst hockey opinions imaginable at that stage. Like just
Probably. Me
just the
too.
worst.
I mean, that's what being 14 is all about. But yeah, I think right now he reminds me of a young Eller because I look at him last year as well. And I remember with McCarron, one of the big issues with his game was he was a big guy, but it was almost like he was afraid to be out muscled. And I saw that a lot last year with Slafkovsky, where he could get in battles, but it was like he was timid to do so because he didn't want to look like he was being outmuscled or just get outmuscled and get knocked down. And now this year he's a bit more confident in his body, but he doesn't naturally seek out the physicality most times. But once in a while, he remembers that he's big, and this game is one of those games where he remembered that he's a big dude and he took advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. He got things going by kind of having an accidental collision, and then he realized, oh man, this is actually kind of fun. I just get the puck if I do this to people. And then he did it a couple more times. You also mentioned in our pre-stream chat about when he came back after turning the puck over and just reached around the guy and grabbed the puck off him. And that's, that's a function of being able to, reach further than most players can.
Yeah.
I think a big thing with him will be watching how he's able to use his frame to protect the puck. Right now, you kind of see that he has the ideas, you see he has the want, but not always the coordination or the ability to make plays well fending off a check. He'll collect the puck, wedge his back in between the guy, he'll push them, and then he'll stop, look up, then make the pass, and by then the lane has closed. And so we're really going to have to start seeing him blend the physicality and the skill together for him to make more high-level plays in the NHL.
Yeah, and you can see like games like tonight, I think, are exciting because you can see what he could become, right? And obviously didn't factor into the scoring tonight, but that's not really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the little details, right? And I think you as well. The one area that he did look really uncomfortable was on the power play when he got moved. I think it was just a natural movement that ended up doing it, but it wasn't like a decision by the coaching staff. But he's usually on that right wall on the power play, and he got moved into the middle or like the bumper spot, and he didn't look like he knew what to do there. And that second power play unit got like really slow decision making. They kind of just passed it around in a diamond formation around the boards there for a full like 45 seconds. So I think when that second unit has looked pretty decent when Slafkovsky's running it from that half wall, but as soon as he got moved in the middle, it seemed like nothing was happening.
Yeah, and this is a sign of a player who's still learning, right? If you are put into an unfamiliar situation and everything falls apart, that's generally not a good sign. You used to like look at Nick Suzuki or Cole Caulfield on the power play. Those guys can move around, play different positions, and it all seems very fluid and natural. Slafkovsky's game right now is very compartmentalized. He has specific areas where he's good, but not necessarily the links between them to be able to get to those positions all the time. I think at 5-on-5, he had a bunch of missed passes. And
Yeah.
I think most of them were good ideas. Like he had his head up, he recognized the opportunity, he just chose the wrong pass for the situation. He'd get the puck and just instantly throw it into the lane, not realizing that the defense has already figured out what he's going to do. Like there was one time where before he even touched the puck, I was like, he's going to throw a cross slot.
Yeah.
And then surely enough, he did, right onto the tape of the Boston Bruins defenseman. And it just really comes down to like figuring out how to adapt to those lanes, whether that's just pulling the puck into your feet so you can get underneath or around a stick, reaching out further, delaying just a split second longer and letting the play develop. Or in the case of a lot of other games where he's too late to lanes because,
Right.
he still find that timing. But historically, his big issue is that the puck doesn't leave his stick quickly enough. So now he's playing with a little bit more pace and it's still not working. I don't know if that's a step up, but certainly you're starting to see him make plays or try plays right now, which is like, that's the primary thing. Remember the Jack Hughes not having a good rookie season thing and people were really down on him because he had, not only did he not score, he had really bad underlying metrics. And the big difference between Jack Hughes' season and Slafkovsky's season was that Jack Hughes was actually trying to make plays. They just weren't working. Now Slafkovsky is trying to make plays, and that's a big, big step forward. Like that's, above all else, that's the most encouraging sign that we've seen from Slafkovsky his entire time in this organization.
Yeah, it is a huge thing. And I remember because back when Jack Hughes was a rookie, I still had access to all that private data. And I remember very similar to Caden Gooley last year that the overarching numbers were not good, but the inputs were really strong. So like Jack Hughes had really strong, like he was very involved in the defense, right? Even like adjusted for how much New Jersey was terrible at that time and how much more defense he had to play. Like he had more defensive breakups than his teammates, and more pass interceptions, all that kind of good stuff, similar to Gooley last year, right? Where yes, he's getting outshot severely, but there at the very least there would be like a higher percentage of the shots against him are blocked, especially on his side of the ice. The shot quality lower on his side of the ice, even though overall not great. So I think when you see those inputs put out in data form, or if you're watching and scouting or have a good eye for figuring out what translates to those end results at the end of the day when the player is fully ready to be an NHLer, uh, you can figure out who's going to have that big next season. And I think Caden Gooley was obvious last year, and Jack Hughes. I don't know if it was obvious in his rookie season that he was going to be a great player, but I thought he was going to be significantly better than he was that year, right? Like it was like very clear that he was going to take a big jump at some point. It took, I think, 2 years for Hughes. Yeah. So good on him. Good on Gooley. And hopefully Slafkovsky can find some level of hitting that stride next year. That'd be a big moment for the Montreal Canadiens. Although maybe they don't want him to do that next year because then it's next contract time.
Yeah. They're going to start sitting him, preventing him from playing games. They're going to tell him, go back to dump the puck out every time you get it. No more making
Yeah.
plays. We're getting scared. You're getting too close to a breakout. But
Down
in
to
all
the fourth
seriousness,
line.
yeah. On the topic of his line mates, so we've seen him move from Newhook and Josh Anderson, which are two essentially human torpedoes. They skate real fast. The net is their target, and anything that stands between them is just a pylon, basically. And sometimes the pylons attack them because they're very predictable. Not perfectly good for what Slafkovsky is trying to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have my doubts about taking Suzuki and or separating Suzuki and Caulfield, but this allows them a little bit more flexibility with how they want to use Slafkovsky, right? Because if you put him with Nick and Cole, the problem is that now you have one winger who could wreck the very important two-man game that the top line
Right.
has. And so now that you separate them, you can see kind of where they're at, and then you can put Slafkovsky with one of them, move Slafkovsky around to find the perfect fit. And I think in this particular game, you're starting to see the playmaking side of Slafkovsky, right? Because he knows he's got shooters on his line. So he's looking for them rather than just trying to get the puck and drop his head and go to the boards of the corner or whatever. And so you're really starting to see him kind of like adapt to his surroundings, which is like not necessarily like the power play thing. I know I mentioned earlier that his game is very compartmentalized, but in terms of like how he's playing and his decision making, what he's trying to do has improved a lot in the context of like, you give him more to work with, he's going to try to make more plays. So I wonder if the play here is just simply to keep him in the top six, no matter how bad it gets. Like you just keep him in the top six, force it to work, give him all the minutes that you can, try to get him on the first power play unit. I don't think anyone wants to see Anderson try to handle the puck on the power play after Suzuki gets run out of space or have to make a play from the goal line to the point. I think the team can move on from that now. The team can decide, this is not working. Let's get rid of this and maybe try Slafkovsky on the goal line where I know Monahan is there, but at least give him a look there where he can take the puck off the board, spin it to the inside, do some between the legs shots, do some cool stuff that we've seen him do before. Put Monahan in the bumper spot because he's going to be good there. Sean Monahan, he's going to be good no matter where you put him.
True.
So just trying to be more creative with him, and I think this is a good start when it comes to usage. Breaking up Nick and Cole, it's a good idea at least temporarily. See where everyone's at, and just experiment with Slafkovsky a little bit more. I'm done with the whole just putting him with guys who aren't going to contribute to Slafkovsky's game.
Yeah. And hopefully the coaching staff is too. I feel like something was figured out when he moved him off that line. I know I think they were just trying to let that line see if they could play their way out of the struggles and waiting for Dvorak to come back to give them a little bit more versatility down the middle. Not having to play Newhook in the middle obviously is a big deal, but it clearly didn't work. And they do have to stop doing that. Hopefully, where he is now, he gets to stay for a little bit. These lines have actually been pretty good. I know the Suzuki line was outplayed, but I think they were matched pretty heavily against the Marchand line, unless I'm mistaken. And I thought Suzuki had a really strong game in the details. His line mates both have limitations. There was some talk on Anderson in the comments here, but I thought Anderson played a good game for Josh Anderson. There were several plays where you can see him not paying attention to where his line mates are, and he just makes the wrong play. But at the same time, he made the most Josh Anderson play constantly and did it more successfully tonight than he has for most of the season. So there you go.
It's the little things with Josh Anderson. Not that his game has little things, but you take the little victories when you can get them from him. And on the topic of Nick, like I thought Suzuki was reaching a lot early, wasn't
Yeah.
really getting pucks. He was always second. And then he might have been on the ice for like 5 or 6 shots at 5-on-5 the entire game, but he probably set up every single one of them. Like especially in that second and third period, he set up some grade A chances that they just couldn't convert. And of course, I know
Yep.
we're bashing Anderson because it's Josh Anderson and he has his limitations, but he's also earned more than a few goals this season.
He has. He definitely has. I think he's over 4 expected goals now. I mean, I would assume because tonight I thought Suzuki put 2 different goals on his stick, but he just couldn't finish. And then didn't he lead the rush in overtime to win it? The goalie batted in, so that was a pretty good play. So there's good and bad with Josh Anderson as per usual, but overall, I thought he played a better game than he has in a long while. So that's good for Josh Anderson. He's gonna score eventually, right? He's not completely cursed. Um Trying to think oh right, that's what I wanted to talk about. The whole Suzuki Caulfield thing. We'll do this and then we'll take questions at the end. Uh Sorry, just got a little bit disorganized in my brain there. I apologize. But we'll talk about this and then we'll take questions at the end for our little presser there from the live audience. What I've been coming around to with Suzuki and Caulfield, and I don't think it's a bad thing that they're split up for right now. I think that it's not the long-term plan anyway. They're just trying different things. But there's so much talk in Montreal about how they need a star forward, and they clearly do. But a lot of that talk is generated by guys like Suzuki and Caulfield over the last couple of years being very one-dimensional in terms of their impact. Uh, Before he was paired with Caulfield, Suzuki was very one-dimensional at even strength in terms of he was very good defensively, and the offense just didn't happen much while he was on the ice, despite good moments from him. Just didn't seem to find a way to generate that offense. Gets paired with Caulfield, and it almost flips immediately. They're very good at producing offense, scoring above expected and all that, but the defense is just terrible. Now, this year, they've both not really produced a ton at even strength yet, but the underlyings are there. They're getting chances. It's just Caulfield's been a little bit cold at even strength so far this year. But the defense has markedly improved, like really, really improved, but with the two of them on the ice. Now, they still need a star forward, but I think the Canadiens, if Caulfield and Suzuki, and I think Caulfield is the one that I circle the most on this because his defensive play this year, like especially in this game, there's several big defensive plays from Caulfield. If he becomes more than just a one-way scorer, if he becomes, doesn't have to be great, but just an even player defensively, I don't think the Canadiens are as desperate at forward as people believed at the start of the season.
I still think they need a game breaker. Like
They do.
I think those two guys are young. They both have obviously point per game potential. Caulfield could easily score 50 goals in his career in a single season, not over his career. And I think really though, if you want to have a top end team, if you want to win the Stanley Cup, you need to have another superstar game breaking talent in there. And I think there will always be limitations to both of those guys. I think
Mm-hmm.
Caulfield is showing some signs of life defensively, as you mentioned. I also think that when he's not with Suzuki, he shows more transition skill, more play driving skill,
Yes.
like being able to fake guys out and gain the zone himself. Whereas when he's with Suzuki, he's just so dependent on getting the puck to Suzuki so he can get it back. Whereas Suzuki just kind of plays his game no matter who he's with. He just keeps doing the same things, keeps doing the same things with other lesser line mates than Caulfield. He does make one change. It's not a big one, but he's less willing to just like throw the puck into an area. he becomes even like more focused on like rimming pucks along the boards, making little short range plays. And when he's with Newhook and Anderson, he does not get the puck back after he does
Yeah.
those things because both of those guys just run into pressure and lose it. So, yeah, I think no matter how good those two guys are, they need another top end forward. I think the
Yeah.
defensive situation is pretty good. Like I think Reinbacher has more offense than people probably realize at this point, and we know he's going to be a great defensive player. Gooley looks like a top pairing guy already. Lane Hudson is a little bit of a mystery in terms of how it will translate, but the mere fact that you have that potential grand slam loaded up is, I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah.
So I think going into the draft, the big thing is going to be find a way to add a top end forward, i.e. Celebrini.
I mean, they'll need some draft luck for that. I think
Yeah.
with the way they're playing this year, they're probably gonna end up in that like seventh or eighth last spot around there, unless the goaltending completely falls apart, and it might. But I think because they compete so hard, it's gonna be tough as they've gotten a little bit better to fall down hard enough to get Celebrini. I still think the most likely scenario is that they try to find a big fish somewhere else.
Yeah.
Whether it's like forcing their Vancouver's hand in the summer with like a threat of an offer sheet, and then a trade where they have like a ton of prospects that they could throw Vancouver's way who are close to NHL ready to soften that burn a little bit, or trying to go big game hunting for Draisaitl in 2 years when he's an unrestricted free agent. Because I don't know, Edmonton just doesn't seem like a happy place right now.
Yeah, the vibes are too good in Montreal to like, lock up a first overall pick. They're
Yeah.
gonna need some luck, but yeah, it's certainly like they're gonna need to get creative, especially looking at it, I think realistically, Slafkovsky is not going to be a superstar player, and that's fine. There aren't going to be many superstars from that draft class.
Yeah, that's true.
But he's probably still tracking as a top six forward, maybe a top line forward. And so any way that you can insulate that with more talent and also remove the guys from the top six who kind of crater the impact of the other top young guys would be better.
Subtly hinting that they should trade Josh Anderson is Mitch Brown right now, I
Well, I
believe.
mean, they should have done that like a year and a half ago, but
Yes, they should have. I mean, the rumors of what they were looking to get at like the Slafkovsky draft, I think they should have pulled the trigger back then. But yeah, that's hockey. Sometimes you miss some. Sometimes you overvalue a guy, and that appears to be the case with Josh Anderson. All right, everyone. If you have any questions for Mitch and I tonight, prospect questions, if you want to ask Mitch, go for it now. This is our presser situation here. There's lots of comments from who's this Mark Dumont guy?
who?
Mark Dumont. He keeps commenting. I don't know what he's talking about. Love you, Mark. Let's see here. I've seen a few comments about my mustache. Yeah, I don't know if I can keep it much longer, to be honest with you. I don't like it. As we were like preparing for this game, I was like, I really wish that I didn't have this right now because I feel like I have a lot of somewhat intelligent things to say tonight, and it's gonna be a big stream because they beat the Bruins, and I want to like clip some stuff to post on like TikTok, and now I'm gonna have to do it with this stupid mustache on my face. So, regrets. Philip Rosier says, thoughts on Newhook? You have any there, Mitch?
Yeah, so Newhook skates fast, likes to shoot the puck, doesn't use his teammates all that effectively, isn't great at getting to the net because he doesn't use his teammates effectively. He's a very talented player. He's first on every puck that he could reasonably win. I think there's a lot of runway there, but for him, it's going to come down to a lot of coaching, a lot of development, and crazier things have happened. There's a real chance he can turn it around and still be like a legit play driving second line forward. But I think odds are you're going to see him settle down into more of a complementary mid six role, and Doc is probably the guy more likely to be the driving force moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's extremely fair. I like Newhook a lot. I think his floor is probably like Josh Anderson with less physicality, like that same kind of player. So if they can get him at a younger age to develop at the same rate that Anderson has over the last couple of years with his hard work, where he's definitely become a better player even with his limitations, I think there's a good chance of Newhook being a pretty decent piece. David CSC says thoughts on Armia being left out tonight. I know that that fourth line has been good the last couple of games, but I think they've been good kind of in spite of Armia. He always makes a few decent plays, but I think he would have really struggled with the pace of tonight's game. That's my thought. I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add other than that he's the most frustrating but most skilled fourth liner in the NHL.
Yeah,
Like the things that he can do, it's incredible. It's just that it's insulated by a bunch of nothing.
yeah, yeah. It is very frustrating. Jean Simard says, thoughts on Bogdan Konyushkov's play in the KHL? Have you got a chance to see any of him, Mitch?
Yes, I have watched him actually just a couple of weeks ago. So I don't buy that he's a legit NHL option anytime soon,
Okay.
but certainly he's been a nice surprise coming out of last year. He posted some decent numbers. He's in a system that like promotes a lot of creativity and, spamming passes to the inside. And so I think sometimes he can look a little rougher than he actually is. But if you can get him to be a little bit more free offensively, being a little bit more creative, then he might be able to sneak into a role in a couple of years.
That's pretty good money for the pick that they used to take him, so I'm sure they'd be happy. Did you see him warming up to like the Russian pop song?
I
The
did
clip that was
not.
going
This
around?
sounds incredible.
It was pretty fun. It was like just singing along, going crazy and doing his stretches. It was pretty fun. Let's see here. Other questions. Jay says, which goalie gets traded and when?
I doubt Montembeau.
Yeah, they said on the broadcast tonight that the Canadians are looking to extend
Okay.
Montembeau, and uh, I mean, people were like freaking out about it, and I was like, "You, this contract's going to be like 2 to 3 years, 2.5 to 3.5 million dollars because he's not a full time starter." When Jake Allen signed his contract, he was a veteran guy who'd proven that he could be a 1A, and he didn't get a lot of money. I don't think Montembeau's got a huge amount of like pull to get more than like 3.5 over a couple of years. What do you think?
Yeah, that's probably about like he might even come in a little bit lower than that. He's fun. He's good for what Montreal wants. He's improved a lot here. They probably, if they have to move on from a guy, it might be Allen. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Primo though. Give him a real chance somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, he deserves it, especially after how strong he's played in both games that he's played this year, despite sitting for so long. He's been really good, and I know it hasn't been easy for him. Mark says, "UL Army is the guy you design when you want to take parts from every good NHL player and make one combined player, except for it's like, do you remember that old game Quap?" Where you would try to like make the guy run, but like every joint on his body was a different key, and he'd fall over all the time. That's UL Armia with all the best parts of all the best players, just not quite attached right.
Oh,
I'm
that is
sorry,
amazing.
Armia. Oh God. Uh, Samuel Hegg says, "How does Cole Eiserman look so far this season? Could he be a fit with the Canadians?"
Yeah, so Cole Eiserman is probably the funniest player that I've seen in quite some time. He just having a bad game, you don't notice him at all. And then you look at the score sheet, he had 4 goals, and they were all just insane long range snipes. And I
That
think
translates to the NHL, right?
it, oh, his shot though is just it's just different. Like the puck leaves his stick at a different velocity than the vast majority of players. I think when you compare him to other national team development program scorers like Wallstrom or Kiefer Bellows, the big difference between him and them is that the shot is better and he's much more of a dynamic shooter, like off the catch from tricky positions, from the inside, around the net. And while he's not much of a passer or a guy who uses his teammates at all, he's very much since I said it earlier, he's very much a torpedo in transition. The flashes of playmaking that he has are like elite. So you're really banking on his game striking that right balance throughout the rest of the season, and ideally at BU where he'll be in an environment that is a little bit more restrictive, but not significantly so. So yeah, I mean he's a fit for any team just because goals are goals, and that's how you win games. And on top of that, you add in the fact that he has like some physicality, some puck moving skill, and some real exciting playmaking flashes. I think he's a pretty moldable player at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, those kinds of players, GMs love that, right? Like the guys who can do that straight line, bash in a goal. And if he's got some playmaking capabilities alongside that, he becomes a really interesting player. We've got like 4 or 5 people asking for your opinion on Atos Koivu.
I can't say that I have ever watched him. I assume that's Saku
No,
Koivu's son. I am the
it is
director of
Saku
North
Koivu's
American
son.
Scouting. I'm the
I
director of North American Scouting, not European.
You hear that? He doesn't care about the Europeans. Mitch
Yeah,
Brown.
verbatim. Yeah, okay.
Verbatim, that's what he said. You can quote me quoting him on that. No, I think he's kind of in the news because earlier this week he had a shootout goal and he did Saku's move where he does like the fake to the forehand and goes around. It was like a carbon copy of the one against the Rangers back in 2008, I think, or 2009. 2008, where Koivu finished it off in the shootout. So Mitch doesn't know enough about Koivu, guys. Sorry. He can't answer that one, and I don't know anything about prospects, so I can't help you there either. Elliot Friedman reported tonight that Montreal are trying to sign Montembeault. We already talked about that, David. I think it's going to be 2 to 3 years, 2.5 to 3.5 annual average. I don't think there's going to be much more than that. Let's see what else we got here for questions, and then we'll probably close it out. Let's see. It's a bit early and teams haven't been announced from Bucklewind. But are there any Habs prospects you're looking forward to seeing at the World Juniors?
Um, yeah. I mean, can I say so? Like, it has to be Lane Hudson, right?
I
Like,
mean, that would be the obvious one I would
like
assume.
there's a real chance like he leads the tournament in scoring this year.
Yeah.
I think on top of that too, it's just gonna be nice to see him in like kind of a different environment than BU, just kind of see how it all works. Probably get a little bit of a preview as to how he looks in the NHL, either at the end of this season or in a year from now if he doesn't sign and decides to go back with his brother and Iserman. Mashar will be an interesting one too, just because like going back to Kitchener was the right move. I think what you really want to see from him is being more of a guy who creates space rather than being the guy who takes space. So a
Right.
guy who, fakes one way, goes the other way, creates a little opportunity for himself. And he was very good at the World Juniors last year, despite the narrative. That was probably the highlight of his season. He was a much more aggressive, much more confident, much more willing to take the inside. And so he's off to a good start. He looks pretty good so far, but hopefully he's able to build a little bit more momentum, become a little bit more of an inside driven, more projectable player. And then at the World Juniors, it all comes together.
Yeah, I think Meshar is the one that I'm most looking forward to. I think Lauren Kelly was saying that the Slovak team looks like it could actually do a little bit of damage this year. And he was so good on the team last year, especially the game against Canada. He was just thrilling. So I want to see. I don't get to see him enough because I don't get a chance to watch much junior hockey. So I'm excited to see Philip Meshar. There's a question here asking if Owen Beck is a lock for the Team Canada or not. It seems like it's not decided. Like he's not seeming like a lock at this point.
So he should make it. I think we can break Beck's season down into two basic things. The first thing is that he's probably trying to play more of an NHL style. The second thing is the plays that he relies on to score in junior and will rely on in the NHL aren't there with the team that he plays at presently. They're
Right.
very much a focused short support team. They don't really do a ton of cross lot passes. When you see those Beck highlights, when he had like that hat trick or when he has a nice assist, know that those are the only real high danger chances that his team had the entire game because they don't really space the offensive zone. They don't really get open. He's going to be one of those guys who, in a weird way, he's going to be better suited for the Canadiens than his current OHL team, just because the system will be much more favorable to what he does. But also, I did see that Peterborough traded away one of their overage players. So maybe there's a chance that Beck gets moved again. And hopefully we see him in an environment that is a little bit more suited to a player of his skill level.
Yeah, no, we talked about the notion of fit with Slafkovsky a lot. We've talked about it a lot on this show, even before tonight. It matters for teams too, right? Like, especially
Yeah,
in junior where, players aren't fully developed. Sometimes they just need to fit in their niche. And from that niche, they get the confidence to develop in other areas. So hopefully Beck gets put in a better situation. But I would assume just based on face-offs and the fact that he's so good defensively, he's at least got like that fourth line center kind of thing or 13th forward on lock where they can just throw him on at any time in any defensive situation and get
I think
a
so.
decent chance at a face-off win. So
I
All
think,
right.
and on top of that, he was pretty good in his like 5 minutes of World Junior time last year. So,
Yeah,
hopefully he
that's true.
gets like,
Yeah, and Mark brings up Adam Angstrom. I'm also looking forward to seeing Adam Angstrom because, or no, he's not eligible this year, is he?
he is a late birthday, I think. So he's not eligible. Or maybe he is. I can't remember. My
I
brain
think
is
I
just
looked it up, and his birthday is like right before the tournament.
okay. So if he's a 2003, if
Yeah,
he's
he
a
turns 20 in November
yeah, so he's not
17th.
eligible. He's not eligible at the tournament. But
Sorry,
and that
folks,
does
no
remind
Angstrom.
me that Reinbacher and Rohr are both eligible. And
Right.
Austria has a little bit of talent, but more importantly, those two guys are going to have to be the real drivers. Austria had some really nice play in the relegation round. Reinbacher's best game of the tournament was in the relegation round. He was a real standout, and so and on top of that, he had a good game against Canada as well. So I really think that they might be able to win a game or at least keep it competitive enough that you're going to see those two guys shine.
Yeah, the chat is saying Austria didn't make the tournament.
Did they get? I didn't think they didn't get relegated, did they?
I don't know.
I thought
Maybe,
Latvia got relegated.
I don't know.
Man,
But
I
if
even
that
watch these games too. You just can tell that I watch too many games in a year. God.
yeah, I know how you feel. Yeah, if they didn't make it back in, that kind of sucks. It would have been nice to see Reinbacher. He is back from his injury now. David C is asking if he's back from his injury. I know he's played at least one game, and it was a rough go for him. But that first game back from injury, right?
He did lose. They lost in the last game.
There you go.
So they're out. That is sadness. And Norway is in.
Norway. I mean, there's some fun players from Norway, I'm sure.
There is actually. There is, but we'll talk about that in the future, I'm sure.
Of course. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I could pick Mitch's brain for an hour longer, but sleep and children wake up at 7 or earlier. So thanks for joining us tonight. Make sure that you like the stream. Make sure that you subscribe to SDPN. Really enjoy you all spending your Saturday with us. Thanks to Mitch for spending his Saturday night with us as well. It's great that we get to do this after every game. It's always fun, and especially fun when you beat the Boston Bruins and snap a 10-game losing streak against them. That was one of the best hockey games I've seen in a long time from the Montreal Canadiens. So lots of positivity closing out of this one. Before we leave, Mitch, tell everyone where they can find your work.
You can follow me at Mitch L. Brown on Twitter.com, and then also head to our YouTube channel. Lead Prospects, David St. Louis just dropped a video comparing Juraj Slafkovsky's games with bad line mates and with good line mates, and the results might shock you.
Yeah, it's a fantastic video, so definitely check that out from David. David is fantastic. Mitch is fantastic. Elite Prospects, we're just big fans over here. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow night because we're back at it. Mark is not on tomorrow night. He's on Tuesday. I made the mistake in the chat. It'll be me tomorrow. Sorry. See y'all later.
Get